We need to talk about Renee Bach and why HBO is deciding to give her a 3-part docuseries. Why do we need to talk about Renee Bach? Well, Renee Bach decided that she was going to go down to Uganda and open up a care facility for children who are malnourished. This woman has no medical training. Specifically with those who are malnourished, there are practices and procedures that one must do in order to keep them alive and well as they are recovering. Because she has no medical training, over 100, they said at least 105 of those children passed away under her care. Back in 2019, NPR did an entire piece on her. Discovered there was a time where not one single licensed doctor was employed by that facility. So the suit was settled in 2020. HBO has picked up the story for a 3-part docuseries. My thing is this: unless we're hearing directly from those parents who lost their children, they can keep it.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say the thing as a white woman that you're not supposed to say, but racism is just jealousy. It's just pure, unadulterated jealousy. Because you know what I think every fucking time I see a black woman? Jesus, she is beautiful. Good God, look at her skin. It is so pretty. Every time I see a black woman, I'm just like, oh, you know? And that's how I know. And it's also because I grew up around white people, and I know how they are and how they think. And baby, it's just jealousy. Always has been.
Hi lovelies, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ballistic Gist. Don't forget to please subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so that anytime I upload videos, you will be the first person to be notified. To my returning subscribers, to those people that share my videos, leave commentaries, and also educate each and every one of us, you guys are the real MVP. Alright lovelies, let's get into today's stages of videos.
Everybody meet Renee Bach. As a teenager, she went to Uganda to do missionary work for her church. When she got back, she was so inspired that she got a message from God to go back to Uganda and save the children. So she started a little blog where she posted pictures of the children that she was working on. Pictures that are so graphic that I can't even show you. Just so she could get members of her church to donate her money, which she was getting rich off of. Which led to her starting a nonprofit organization called Serving His Children. And it got so big that she was becoming front page news. But this is where the story takes a twist. Renee doesn't have a medical degree. In fact, she doesn't even have a high school degree. Renee only has a GED. Yet she was doing medical procedures on children and telling these mothers that she was fully qualified. But here's where it gets worse. Because she didn't have no doctors at her nonprofit. And in 2011, she had a 20% death rate at her nonprofit. In 2012, she had an 18% death rate at her nonprofit. And in 2013, when she finally did hire some doctors, she had a 10% death rate. And because of this, 105 children have lost their lives because of this woman. And when 2 of the mothers were able to take Renee to court and sue her, they only got $9,700 each. And Renee got off scot-free. And now Renee is happily married, living in Virginia. And get this, she is raising 2 children that she adopted from Uganda. And she says, quote, "I'm thinking about leaving Virginia because there's too much racism here for my children. So I'm thinking about moving west to California." And on top of all that, now she has an HBO documentary coming out tomorrow on September 26th where she is capitalizing off of her story where she had no accountability for the death of these children. And she is getting paid a shit ton of fucking money from HBO. And this is the problem with the white Christian missionaries going over to Africa thinking they can save the children even though they have no medical training because they got a calling from God. And to have the ignorance to say that you want to leave Virginia and move west to California because, well, there's no racism in California. This is why you shouldn't be raising black children, because you have the ignorance of a white woman, of the white supremacy mindset, because you have no idea of what the fuck you're talking about, because you have been indoctrinated with the white narrative to think that white people know better and do better, which is why you went to Uganda in the fucking first place, thinking that you could save the children when you have no medical training. And I experienced this firsthand when I lived overseas as a teenager, and I witnessed specifically white Americans treating the locals like shit, pushing them around, acting like they can get away with anything because they have been told and taught and given the privilege to be able to do so without any accountability, and then they just come back to America as if nothing fucking happened. So to all the white people going overseas, You do not own the place and you are not better than anybody. My name's Eric Stone. Doses.
Did you watch that documentary on HBO? The one about the lady who ran a medical clinic in Uganda with no medical certifications? Let's talk about it. Renee Bach moved to Uganda and established a health clinic where she, a homeschooled woman with no medical training, oversaw the treatment of over 1,000 children. She performed medical procedures that she was not qualified to, even admitting that she used a gut feeling instead of expertise. She administered drug treatments and blood transfusions to infants and toddlers, saying that she felt called by God to save lives. Her downfall came from Jackie Kramlich, a registered nurse who reviewed records and discovered treatments and diagnoses that didn't make sense to her. Other employees accused Bach of ignoring qualified and educated Ugandan nurses and doctors. Kramlich suspected many of the children were dying due to refeeding syndrome, where their bodies would go into shock due to a rapid change in nutrition. Kramlich's letters to the board and the media led to the eventual closure of the clinic. Renee Bach never faced any charges. She only had a civil suit in Uganda, where each mother was paid $9,000. The film has received criticisms for centering Bach and not the families of the children that died, but it does do a great job of capturing Bach's delusion and ignorance. She repeatedly tells the camera that she's guilty of what amounts to technical errors, and that the only reason she was too involved in the medical side was because she was trying to save somebody's life. Bach's story is similar to what other young missionaries and aid workers are taught about other nations and their capabilities, leading some to do more harm than good. This is Habari Njema. Follow me if you want to learn more about African politics and pop culture.
That white woman over there is a missionary, God's servant, and at the same time responsible for the death of hundreds of Ugandan children. Look at her performing doctor duties. Like, just look at her in that picture. You might think that, hey, she's a full doctor. See how serious she was there carrying out medical checkups, yet she had no medical training. Just look at how my people are so concentrated hearing what she has to say because they believed in her. She's called Ren Bach, a citizen of the US. She left her motherland, came to Uganda, opened up an organization called Save His Children in the eastern part of Uganda, claiming that he was sent by God to come and save Ugandans. Hey, this organization started off as an organization that was giving food to poor families, minority children, and later elevated to treating children. Bach went around villages collecting or picking up children, sick children, giving them treatment, of which during these treatments, she was only and only following her guts, which resulted to the deaths of so many of them. Community became so suspicious after the so many death reports. They cried to the government. That is when a proper checkup, background checkup was carried out on this woman, just for it to come out that this lady here, this evil person here, had no qualifications to be a doctor. All the treatments she was giving to those children were entirely guesswork. The government sued her, but of course, she is a US citizen, and we all know the weight that comes with that. Hey, as in, you know what I mean? Most especially when it comes to countries like Uganda, yeah, so later they decided to settle those issues outside the court, of which this lady here, this evil person here, gave each family 35 Ugandan million shillings. I don't know how much that is in the US dollars, but that is what she offered them, and then went back in Virginia as we speak right about now. She's in Virginia enjoying life, farting, eating like she's free. As if that was not enough, a channel called HBO gave her a platform to clear her name. For those of you who are not familiar with HBO, it operates the same as Netflix. Like, they all the same, like, you know what I mean? I'm sure many of you know what Netflix is. Myself, I didn't know what HBO was until Rennie coming out to clear her name from an unholy. As we speak right about now, there is a documentary on that platform, on that channel, where this lady here speaks so highly of herself, stylishly trashing our pains, stylishly trying to communicate to us that we are useless, worthless, and the lives of our children that went are not nothing. You understand? Her reputation is much more important than the kids she unalived. One thing I'm sure of, if it was a Ugandan that went to the US and did exactly what Renee did, or more less than what she did, right about now as we speak, he or she would have been breathing behind the bars. But because now this person is white from the US, she's free and also have the freedom to come out on a big channel like HBO and clear her name. I don't think an African or a black person would have been given a chance, that opportunity to sit like in the camera and clear their name and also be free. Now, this advice goes to you all African people, Africans. Stop this excitement of seeing white people and you all get jammed up, like you get excited, you go crazy. White man, bye, muzunga. Because as far as I know, you people, most of them don't give a fuck about you people. They don't care about you. Like, they don't see you. You see them, but they don't see you. They don't care about, and they are ready to go extra miles to harm you. You think they are better than you, but reality is you are better than them. So please stop. And also Ugandan government, tubeera tutya n'abantu abali malnourished okutuuka okuleeta omuntu w'obulwa ajja tuteekemu obutwa atuttira abaana baffe. Ugandan government tuli kuki? Bino biki bye tulaba? Lwaki bulijjo tetubimanyi? Bino ebintu bituukawo bitya nga tetubitegeera? Omuntu n'adduka n'okulinnya nnyonyi nadda ewaabwe ng'abantu bafudde bwenga mutunula butunuzi. Babuulire.
HBO is releasing a documentary on Renee Bach, or Renee Bach. I don't know how to pronounce her name, and honestly, I don't care. She is a white American woman who is accused to be responsible for the death of 800 children in Uganda because she opened a center for malnourished children and essentially practiced medicine without a license there. But based on the images I've seen, this documentary is very much featuring her and featuring her voice and featuring her opinion. Well, she obviously defends herself that, she's not responsible for those deaths and that they would have died without her and that she saved thousands of lives. First up, I'm really surprised they're releasing this documentary in the middle of the Owa versus Tui lawsuit that's happening in the United States. Because white evangelical women with a savior complex are doing damage in the United States too. Second off, and I say that as a white person, sometimes white people need to know to shut the fuck up. We just need to stop centering ourselves and centering our lives and trying to be the main character in black and brown people's lives. And trying to be the main character in sub-Saharan Africa. Because we're not the main characters. And I say that also as someone who very much had a white savior complex and probably still has some remnants of it. Mainly because I went to Catholic school and I grew up Catholic. And we obviously had a charity associated with our school that was helping children in Africa. Every year we had send funds to create schools in Africa, send your old school books to Africa, send your old clothes to Africa. When I was 4, I asked my mum to stop putting me in dresses, and she sent all of my old dresses to Africa through this charity. I have a picture of a little girl wearing one of my dresses, and I say Africa because I don't know which country this is in. I don't know her name. I don't even know if she consented to that picture being shared with me or if her parents consented to her picture being taken. Not only that, but every year we had something called Opération Bol de Riz, which literally translates to Operation Rice Bowl. The idea was that you would pay the regular price for your school meal, but instead of getting a full school meal, you'd get a bowl of rice. And the money difference that they would have from the cost of the rice bowl that was significantly cheaper and the cost of the regular school meal, they would send to their charity in Africa. And you couldn't complain that you were hungry that day because they would tell you that there are children in Africa that are starving and you should be lucky you had a bowl of rice. And I checked. They're still doing it. It's 2023 and they're making white French children eat a bowl of rice so that you can supposedly feed children in Africa? And not just that, but these same people, these same right-wing Christians, every time they talk about helping Africans or African children, it's always out there in Africa. It's never here. It's never about helping them come here as refugees or as immigrants. I remember on the news when I was still in secondary school, there was this mother and her daughter who fled Mali for France and asked for asylum. And the mother said that because her extended family wanted to do female genital mutilation on her daughter. The French government argued that Mali had outlawed female genital mutilation, so she wasn't at risk, and they deported both of them. To this day, virtually every single woman and girl in Mali is mutilated that way. Because white saviors don't actually want to help African people. What they want to do is to shape the African continent in their image. This is just the modern fauna of colonialism.
Americans, this one is not easy to stomach. Imagine someone with zero medical training setting up a so-called medical center for children, not in the US, where regulations will shut it down in hours, but in a vulnerable part of Uganda, where depression makes people cling to any hope, even false ones. This isn't a story from fiction, it's real and it ends in strategy. The woman at the center of this story is Renee, a US missionary who went to Uganda claiming to do God's work, but instead of preaching or building homes, she ran a non-profit called Saving His Children, a medical charity in name only. Now here's the twist. She had no medical training, not a nurse, not a doctor, not even a first aid certificate. Still, she reportedly dressed in white coats, administered IVs, and gave out medical advice. She acted the part without earning it. Over the years, children began dying in her care, not just one or two. Report says over 100 children lost their lives while being treated at her center. Let that number sink in. 100 children. She was not a trained medic, yet she was treating several cases of malnutrition and illness as if she were qualified. And Americans, you should be outraged. This isn't just about one misguided woman. It's about the unchecked privilege and dangerous savior complex that allows people to go into developing countries and play God because they can. Will Renee Bach have been allowed to treat patients in California? Will she have dare walk into a ER and start inserting IVs or giving medical advice in Baltimore or Boston? Absolutely not. She would have been arrested. But in Uganda, where infrastructure is fragile and oversight can be thin, she did just that, and vulnerable children pay the ultimate price. Fast forward to this year, Renee Bach has settled a lawsuit filed by two Uganda mothers whose children died under her care. The settlement reportedly includes financial compensation, but here's the catch: she does not admit any wrongdoing. Let that sink in again. Over 100 children died, and there is no formal admission of guilt. This isn't justice, this is a PR clean-up. Imagine the grief of these mothers. They trusted someone who presented herself as a savior. They watched their children die under her care. Then they were met with silence, dismissal, and now finally a settlement that falls far short of what real accountability looks like. This case exposes something deeper and uglier: the white savior complex. People with good intentions but dangerous ignorance go to countries like Uganda thinking they are helping, but they don't listen, they don't learn, they just act. Saving His Children was praised by churches in the US, funded by donations, and promoted in Christian media. All the while, no one was asking the hard question: where is her license? Who oversees this clinic? Are these children truly safe? It's time to ask ourselves how many other missionaries or all-qualified volunteers are out there right now, making life and death decisions they have no right to make. We cannot let this go quietly. Renee have left Uganda. She may have settled, but the story isn't over. The system that allow her to operate unchecked and untrained still exists. If you are American and outraged, channel that anger. pressure your churches and charities to demand real accountability. Support organizations led by local professions, doctors, nurses, health workers who know their communities. Stop donating blindly to feel-good mission. Ask questions. Demand transparency. And to Uganda, your children deserve better. Your mothers deserve justice, and your country deserves protection from exploitative charity marks as divine intervention. Renee Bach didn't just fail. She played God and people died. And unless we all start holding these people accountable, it will happen again. Like, share and subscribe if you believe this story deserves attention. Let's shine a light on the dark side of unchecked missionary work and demand a better future for everyone. See you in the next video.